there's something unexplainable about what happened and what still holds a certain magic.
It's like, you know, Andy Hardy, let's throw a show together. No matter good or bad it's going to be, we did it ourselves.
You know, it was all for one and one for all. You know, it was a great club.
There was a gentleman by the name of Herb Brown who in 1955 had a hobby shop in Long Beach. And he created a number of hobby clubs for the back room of his shop. And on the last Saturday night in May of 1955, he began a magic club. And a dozen or so young kids from around the area showed up, and they voted on a name. And after a short business meeting, each one got up on a platform in the corner of the back room, and they performed whatever magic tricks they had with them that night that they could perform. And that was the beginning of the Long Beach Mystics.
So we had elections, and I was the first treasurer. And our dues were 25 cents a month. It was a big-time deal. The club started meeting. We met the last Saturday of every month in the back room of Brownie's Hobby and Magic Shop. And he had built a little stage for us to work from. And there were some very wonderful gentlemen that came down and kind of gave us a lot of moral support, a lot of guidance, helped us with a lot of things as far as being performers, as far as learning magic, and more importantly, I think, attitudes, professional attitudes.
The Long Beach Mystics changed my life and changed all of their lives. We didn't know it at the time. We were a bunch of guys that were hanging out and having fun and doing what we enjoyed doing, and that was working on our own magic acts and working on our friends' magic acts and then doing those magic acts. It wasn't any more than that at the time. Now, all these years later, as we look back and as we talk to people that knew about the Mystics or heard about the Mystics or have seen things, we now realize, wow, something extraordinary was happening in Long Beach during those years that apparently wasn't happening anywhere else in the country.
When I found the Mystics, they said, okay, well, you know, it's a club of magicians it's a performing club. It's not just people that kind of sit around and talk about it. I thought, this would be cool. This would be actually people doing something, you know, especially kids my own age.
The Mystics was the first time I ever belonged to something that made me feel important, made me feel a part of something. You know, I just never had that before when I was a kid.
Actually, the first time I encountered the Long Beach Mystics, I was probably 17 years old. And Lance Burton and I had driven up to Colon, Michigan to Abbott's Magic Get-Together. And they put on a whole show, just the Long Beach Mystics, and we were just completely knocked out. But these were guys that had acts like this, and we were, you know, piddling in our basements playing with magic tricks, and they were just spectacular. Professional magicians and our age.
They were all like teenagers. And I saw their show and was really impressed, because here were magicians my age that were really great, that really had acts, you know. It wasn't just kids getting up and doing a few tricks. I mean, every one of the Long Beach Mystics had an act, and you could tell it was something that put a lot of thought into it. And that's when I first became aware of the Mystics and got to meet many of them.
Abbott's is an annual event that everybody knows about if you're in the magic world, and so we just sent a contingent of Long Beach Mystics out to Colon. And I think we did part of a show, like either the second half of a show or whatever, and they were all the Long Beach Mystics. And this is where Kevin James comes in, because Kevin saw that show and said, that's the group of people I want to hang with. And he moved out to California to be part of the Long Beach Mystics and work on his act, because apparently he couldn't find many other people in his area that he could hang with and get the push that he needed. And so that's how we got Kevin.
Around 1981, I moved to Los Angeles, actually Anaheim. I was a young magician. I didn't know anybody, and I went to a magic shop in Long Beach, looked on their little bulletin board and saw the different magicians who put their cards up. And I had heard of the Mystics before back in Michigan, and they accepted me with open arms, and you know, it was just, come on, let's you know, do you have an act? You know, what do you do? And basically at that time I didn't have a stage act. I just did close-up. And it was really neat. We had a little clubhouse. It was perfect for developing an act. It really was.
I had become involved in Magic. I loved Magic. It was pretty much a solitary thing for me. I performed a little bit for my friends, but he said, hey, you ought to come down and check out this Magic meeting. And I went down there, and boy, a whole world opened up for me. Here were all these people like me. And I can remember living for those monthly meetings. I mean, when they were over, it was like going to Disneyland. It was all over and think, oh, when's the next chance to go?
There was no adult supervision. I mean, it really wasn't. I mean, the meetings were very limited because it was like, forget about the business, let's just perform. And almost for the tryout, you had to do, you know, if you had enough guts to get up there and try out, you're going to get in the club. I didn't know that. So I did my tryout, and I was very nervous about it, and I had a lot of props, and I thought I did a good job. But no one told me if I made it or not. So I went home, and my mom said, how'd it go? I said, I guess it went okay. I don't know if I'm in the club. And then I'd come to find out everybody, if you have enough guts to get up on stage to perform, everybody gets in.
The Mystics were a bunch of lunatics. Nah, they were a great group of guys that were rebels, and still today I'm a rebel too in Magic. You know, they started as a club that didn't allow adults in. If you were 21, you were an adult, and so we kind of bent the envelope a little bit when we were doing our Magic and stuff, and that's what it was to me.
Your parents would either drop you off. Maybe one or two of the Mystics were old enough to actually drive, but usually your parents would either drop you off, or for the really younger members when you were 12 or 13, they'd come in with you, but they'd sit at the back of the theater. And one of the really important things about the Mystics is it was for, about, and run by these young members. There were no adults to interfere.
The fact that there was very minimal adult supervision. Even years later, as people that had reached 21 in the club, they still hung around, but they didn't get in the way. They stood in the background, and that allowed the members to have to take responsibility for whatever the club did. It also gave them the opportunity to dream something up and execute it, good or bad. But there was nobody to squelch that dream before they tried it. And it's this spirit that I would say sets the Mystics apart from any other junior Magic club I've seen ever.
Mainly what really happened is that the older kids helped the younger kids. That was part of it. You know, you had to run lights and all this other stuff, but you also had like a mentor, and somebody that had been there before you is now helping you, and that's part of their job too.
So when I joined, I was 11. Stan was my teacher, and and then when I was still with the Mystics when I was 21.
All these guys, they were our mentors, and they'd already been there. They were doing it. They were the ones that kicked it off, and they said, "Okay, here's the deal," and they would teach us and show us and help us with our act and help each other, and that's what we just thought that was normal. We thought all clubs did that. We had no idea that we were the only ones doing it that way.
Here's what happens in Magic clubs. Magic clubs get together usually once a month. Hey, and these guys are going to get up and do a trick or everything. And guys get up and do a trick. And, oh, that was great. That was the best yet. And, you know, next month we'll do it again. And the Mystics was the complete opposite of that. Don't tell me how great this was. That doesn't help me. Tell me what you didn't like about this. Tell me what you hated about this. Tell me how I can make this better. What should I be working on between now and next month's meeting?
It was really the friendship and somebody being there to give you really honest advice. Like Les Arnold was brutally honest, and if it was something that was lousy, he would tell us, and that's how you made you good.
That gave kids some place to go once a month, that they could be around other kids that were involved in Magic. It was something positive for them to do. And the great thing about the Mystics is that it not only became a great powerhouse of talent, they became the stars of Magic today, all out of this one little club.
They created this sense of rite of passage for us and solidified us in who we are and brought us all together in a way where we were able to develop not only our skills as magicians, but that we were able to develop a sense of self-respect as human beings, and it solidified us. Magic was the tool that brought us together to help us focus. And we had no idea what was going to come of it. We did it for fun. So we came for the reason of fun and got something even more than that out of it.
We would come, there was a hardcore group of us at the early part that we would come on Saturdays, our day out of school. And if you recall being a student, a kid, Saturdays were special. And to take that day and go and get yourself beat up by people telling you, stand up, speak louder, speak out, move this way, move that way, don't do this, don't do that. And we ate it up because it was all very, very positive, constructive criticism. And I find a lot of younger performers today don't know how to accept that.
It was an incredible rite of passage, and no wonder so many magicians have developed such strong affirmations about who they are and where they're going in life and why there are so many magicians that came out of that club who are now professionals.
If it weren't for the Mystics,
I credit them totally with my career.
absolutely. I have no idea what I'd be doing. Because, I mean, by myself, just on my own, did I have enough discipline to push it through?
Right. Because it gave you a goal every month to present this stuff. Without that, I would have never, because I need that. I would put it off. You know, I'd be doing Magic as a hobby today, and I might be, you know.
It really helped me out a lot, learning how to have tough skin.
Because what we would do is we would go in every week and we would do our act, and then they would rip it to shreds and tell us what they liked. They very rarely liked anything. And this is for everyone's act. And they would tell you to come back next week for the whole new act.
To be able to take that criticism and stuff and actually keep an open mind to develop to a better performer, which a lot of guys couldn't take. And we took it, and so, you know, we worked hard, and that's how we got to where we are today. So, you know, we owe a lot to the Long Beach Mystics.
So I'm in San Francisco doing a show, and Paul Harris is there, and everybody knows Paul Harris is the famous close-up guy, known around the world. So I'm driving, and he says, "Hey, are you driving back to LA? I could use a ride." Great, it's a 7-hour drive, I'll have some company. So Paul Harris and I are driving down Interstate 5 for hours, and we have lots of time to talk about things. And he grew up in LA area, but he was not a Long Beach Mystic. And we were talking about the Mystics, and he said, "Man, you know, those Mystics, I remember being a kid, and
I hated those guys."
It's true. He said they'd like travel in bands. You know, they'd come around there was never one. There was a gang of them winning all the trophies and doing. And he said, I just remember being so intimidated by those guys. You know, they do stage shows and all these things, and it was just being a kid magician. It was just intimidating. This is coming from Paul Harris. Then he said, the only guy that I remember back then that intimidated me, like those Mystics guys, but that wasn't a Mystic, was Michael Weber. I said, Paul, I got some bad news for you. Mystic President 1980, Michael Weber. He couldn't believe it.
The great thing about a bunch of kids getting together like this is you're really not at the ego place. The big levels of satisfaction here are you've got what kids are looking for. You've got power and autonomy. That's what, that's what 12, 13, 15, 16-year-old boys want, is some power and control over their universe, over their life. And you had that. It was your act. You made the decision. You were performing it. You were getting the accolades for it. So it was about you. But it wasn't about feeding the egos. It was about empowerment.
Magic, yep. Every high school in America should have a magic club. They don't teach kids how to think in school. They teach them how to memorize times tables and how to memorize dates. But what they don't do is teach kids how to think. A magician sits down with an impossible problem and solves it every day. Nothing's impossible. All you need to do is figure out the best method for it.
I think that it teaches you some creativity. Obviously, you have to go beyond what you see and think into what could be possible. Or
I think it teaches us to solve problems too.
Yeah,
in a unique way.
Yeah,
it did for me, and I used humor a lot to get myself out of situations.
For this experiment, I will need a volunteer from the audience. Let me see. I need to search for someone. Take a look here. Carrot scope. Look at that. Fire one.
Yeah, that's always good. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff that magic will help you with, because you're on a completely different plane. You're thinking completely differently than everybody else. And if you get bit by the magic bug early, it's a way of thinking. It's okay. I know reality. You have to establish a base of reality, and then how you can change that. How can you make it seem real with it not being real, or with something happening in the background that no one else is aware of. And that's really critical thinking and problem solving and all that kind of good stuff.
Magic is a great thing for young people to get interested in, for a sense of autonomy, for building self-confidence, for having something that they can, a creative pursuit that's performance related.
We have such respect for each other and ourselves that it's hard for us to lose it now. And that's great. I mean, how many children can say that? One
Magician named Presto the Digitator told me I looked like a chicken on stage with my facial expressions. And I remember it was during a contest. We were in a magic contest. He was one of the judges. And he came back after the show and he says, well, this doesn't work and this doesn't work and you look like a chicken and get rid of these ridiculous facial expressions. And I remember Mike Caveney taking me aside and saying, he's crazy. Do what you want to do. Do what what you're doing is great. And that was sort of the an example of the support of the Mystics. It was really about just getting up there and doing it.
Yeah. I love the notes.
Once a mystic, always a mystic, because we have the same background. So notes are very important. It was something that we did often. I mean,
we want to be good.
Yeah.
And so the only way you get good is to have someone tear you down. What's wrong? I mean, at the first it was tough hearing stuff like that, but then you learn.
And it got easier after you hear it a bunch of times. I mean, not that you're terrible, but they'd say, okay, you flashed, so be careful on this move or this angle or whatever the deal is.
Yeah.
And you just get used to it. You develop elephant skin, because it's not about tearing you down, it's about helping you improve.
Making you better. That's where you have to look at it.
Your really close friends in the Mystics would be the ones that would tell you, if it looked like crap, they would tell you it looked like crap. And that honesty just saves you an awful lot of time in growing. Sometimes painful, but you know that it's important. And also, when it is good, you know it's good.
All right, now there's a lady in the audience by the name of Charlene. I want you to look the group over and see if you can find her. Go on. This evening.
They inculcated you in a really strong, performance-oriented, schooling, where it was all about, being the best entertainer you could be. And so again, I just kind of took it for granted, all these things I learned. I mean, if I didn't have the Long Beach Mystics, at the risk of sounding immodest, I'd probably be one of the most technically adept, unemployed jugglers in the country. You ever wonder why people never try to impress their family and friends by juggling plastic grocery sacks? Here's why that is. It's almost missed. The drunks in the back are going, even I can do that. All right, in order to make this a bit more exciting, as if that were possible, I will now attempt to juggle all 3 grocery sacks using only one hand at a time.
It's interesting, of all the different allied arts to magic, juggling is the only one that really linked to the Long Beach Mystics. We had some excellent jugglers that were also magicians. And in fact, at our Long Beach Mystic Clubhouse, Randy Pryor operated an entire juggling school.
The name of the course was the Wait, Wait, Wait School of Juggling. And that's because when you teach people to juggle, they drop a lot. And the first thing they say is, wait, 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 let me try that again. Yeah. And that's where it came from. And as a matter of fact, one of our mystics, David Diebel, I taught him how to juggle when he was 9 years old.
We had a lot of jugglers in the group too, and magic and juggling kind of go hand in hand. And we used to throw this thing called the Magic and Juggalathon, and it was a way to raise money for our club. And, basically, we had to perform straight for 24 hours. Maybe, it seemed like it was 3 days long. I think it was longer than 24. It was like 48 or 36. Yeah, it was some enormous amount of time.
I said, hey gang, why don't we juggle for like I don't know, 24 hours straight. And of course, all being, kids went, yeah, cool.
I came home from working a couple weeks on a cruise ship, and I just thought, as a lark, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll drive by the building just on my way home, and lo and behold, here are outdoor lights, generators, stage, and a big sign that says Magic Juggalathon, 72 hours and counting. And I pulled the gang over and said, what is this? And they said, oh, we got a tax bill in the mail, didn't know how to pay it, so we're having a juggalathon. And you'd be surprised at how many people, a couple jugglers and some magicians on a platform on a busy street can gather at 4 o'clock in the morning.
It was a complete success, and we raised a little bit, enough money to, pay the government. And it was great. We had such a great time doing it that we did it the second, third time.
Because it made a lot of money.
It did.
We did it every year after that.
Yeah, it never been done before, which is so weird. And people went, you're going to do something for 24 hours straight? And it was, the first one was all juggling. The next time we did it, it was 72 hours, and we asked, obviously, the magicians to join us.
The first one was just nothing but juggling?
Only the jugglers for the first one.
I can't imagine anyone watching 72 hours of juggling.
We can't imagine doing it for 72 hours. Yeah, so that's how it started, and then something had to be going on. The rules were changed that some kind of performance had to be going on, magic or juggling or balloon animals or whatever, for 72 hours straight. So you could stop by at any point, 3 o'clock in the morning, doesn't matter. Stop by and something will be going on, and it was a blast. We didn't know that it was impossible, that was like the Mystics credo. Nobody told us we can't do it, and we just assumed.
No, it was fun. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was a blast. We had a great time.
Please excuse us now for one final bit of preparation.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. We regret to announce that due to technical difficulties beyond our control, the following 2 acts, The Daring Escapes of Michael and Randy, and the Cypress College Ballet Dance Ensemble, will be unable to perform their acts in their entirety this evening. Instead, these 2 performances will be combined into one single act. For your entertainment, Échappée du Lac des Cygnes, Escape from Swan Lake.
It's Amazing was our annual show. This was the highlight of the year for the club. And we sold tickets to family, friends, and just about anybody we could. It all started back in 1963 as an extension of the annual Christmas party. In 1962, the Christmas party was a big success. The next year, Les Arnold, as president, decided that they were going to take that party and move it into a theater. So he didn't want to spend the 15 bucks to rent the theater, so he did a magic show for the recreation department to pay for it, and he did a second magic show to pay for the $15 sound system that was needed. The club was expecting about 30 people to show up, and 130 people showed up, and thus It's Amazing began.
Tickets were sold to this gigantic theater in terms of a bunch of kids getting up and putting on a show. And another important thing to remember about the Long Beach Mystics in terms of the It's Amazing show was everybody had a part to play. So maybe you had an act and you won last year. If you didn't have something new, or if you weren't one of the guys that had kind of one of the classic Mystics acts, then maybe this year it would be your turn to be involved in the promotion of it. Or maybe you'd be working as a lighting guy, or doing the sound, or some sort of technical stage direction. So the nice thing about it is, it wasn't just the technical side of magic, it was all of stagecraft, it was all of performance.
We ask again, out of courtesy to the other performers, that you please also use no flash photography. Now a lot of people say, Mike, the show is only on once a year, why can't we take flash pictures? I'd like to show you exactly why. Our entertainer. Hey, wow, great shot. Kind of things memories are made of.
I started getting this Genie magazine, and then I read in the Genie magazine that there was a Long Beach Mystic It's Amazing show was going to be in a couple of weeks at the high school that I went to. So it was a Friday night, and my dad dropped me off at the show, and he and my brother went to a football game. And in the Genie, it said that $1.50 was what the tickets were. So I had exactly $1.50. And I go to plunk down my money, and the kid at the ticket booth says it's $2. I said, well, it said $1.50 in Genie. He said, well, it's $2 at the door. So I didn't have the extra 50 cents, so I walked home. I didn't even get to see the show that year. Now the next year, I was like working on the show backstage.
Your history,
Now let us review what has taken place. Like a total fool, he put his head in this thing. In a few seconds, it's going to look like the bottom of the bag is rushing towards your face. All an illusion. I'll tell you what, Mac has been such a fine sport to come up and help us out. Tonight we're going to do something special for the audience. Tonight, I'm going to bank it in. Here we go, Mac. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Don't make any false moves there, pal. Slowly. 1, 2, 3. Right, your head. Straight back. Straight back. And let's have a big hand for a really good sport.
The goals of entering a Mystic contest or getting ready to be on an It's Amazing show. It's those goals that we were all striving for. That's where we won. Actually standing up there that night in the applause, that was secondary. Getting ready to do it, that's where we learned everything.
The main reason it was great, it was because it gave us all an incentive. It gave us all a short-term goal. And there was some heavy-duty competition, but it was all friendly competition. You know, we all wanted to be on it. It was a big deal for us. And you know, with that marked on the calendar, you know, you knew you had like 2 months to get your act together, or you weren't going to get on.
First It's Amazing show was just one to watch, to go and see people perform. And I think on that show that night was one kind of temporary Mystic. Some people would come in and out as Long Beach Mystics. Like Steve Martin, the comedian, actor, writer, was a Long Beach Mystic for, I don't know, maybe half a year or something like that. So he would come to some of the meetings, but he performed on the first It's Amazing show I ever saw.
He was, about that time, he was working the old coffee houses, playing the banjo and doing a little bit of magic and stuff. doing folk singing and stuff. And I called him and I said, Steve, we want you to be on the show. Oh, great. So he was our guest star for that particular show.
You know, it was great to learn from these guys, but it never ceased to be the Long Beach Mystics show. We always felt it was just like an old clubhouse show, and these guys would step in and be part of our show. But in some ways, I think they would get in on the sense of fun.
I mean, I can remember peeking through the curtain at the audience, and yeah, there's everybody's aunt and uncle and grandma out there. But there was all these famous magicians. Bill and Irene Larson would come down from the Magic Castle, and Milt Larson, and George Boston, this famous guy that we would read about in the magazines, and Marvin Roy, and Mark Wilson, and Bev Bergeron from the Magic Land of Alakazam on TV, and it's like, holy smokes, we better do a good show.
It created an environment that let us learn how to work hard and to appreciate constructive criticism, and It's Amazing was a blast.
Our whole year revolved around that. What are you going to do on the show next year? Are you working on something new? And it was just a huge deal to us. One of the reasons was it was the one time where we got to strut our stuff and show everybody what we were made out of.
There were a total of 21 It's Amazing shows, 20 between 1963 and 1985. And then the 21st, which I guess made us adults, was a reunion show held at the Society of American Magicians Convention in Las Vegas in 1996. So we were all grown up by that point.
I don't really know what that core thing was. I don't know why we all remained friends after all these years. I don't know why we all dedicated our lives to magic. I just know that there was something unique and unexplainable. You could pull all these parts together and put them together again, and they wouldn't amount to the same thing. There was just something strangely unexplainable about it that unless you were there, and I mean, even if we were there, we really can't explain it. For some reason, there was a bond and a camaraderie that I think will always stay central to our lives in some way. This is our wall of honor. All of our variety acts that appear in the show, we have them sign the wall. We haven't been around that long, so we don't have that many signatures. But the very first one, Mike Caveney, who came up here to help us open Magic Underground, perform with us during our first couple of weeks, he wrote, Mark and Ginger, may the underground run forever, Mike Caveney, but most importantly, it says Mystics Rule, which I guess means that even after all these years, we're still just the Long Beach Mystics, or at least we think so.
I think somebody said there might be something in the water in Long Beach in those, that time. It was just a great bunch of kids that got together and were really creative and hard workers. And then after I was done, and Dana Daniels and Randy Pryor and those guys kept going, and Mike Weber. After that, there just weren't strong leaders, and it kind of just, dwindled away.
Yeah, so the club disbanded about a year and a half after I left, and it was a terrible feeling to think that it would not happen again. So I still have this deep-rooted desire that someday the Mystics will rise again from the ashes.
The downfall of the Long Beach Mystics was what made it great. And that was the lack of adult supervision. So a handful of people would get in there and just drive it up and up and up, and then they would move on, and there might not be another group right behind them.
There were times where it was like non-existent, it stopped meeting and all that, and then one of us will go, hey, we should get this thing rolling again, let's get the guys, we get on the phone, and they said, great, you're president. And that's how I became president. And I was like, well, wait. Yep. Yeah, what does that mean? But
it seems to go through leaps through generations. With Les and the originators, and then Stan had his group with Mike and Bill, and then we had our group, and it seems like every 10 or 15 years it fires up again, and so I hope that that's the case.
I think that might fall under the category of wishful thinking. It's not just because the times are different, everything's different. And the magic world is completely different than it was back then. Partly because, maybe largely because of the internet and how magic is distributed and how magic information and secrets are distributed.
The death-defying, torn and restored tissue.
At least I grew up feeling like, hey, I invested money, time into this. I'm not going to tell you how it's done. And then it spoils it. It's like telling little kids there is no Santa Claus.
You had to go to a magic shop and you had to kind of prove yourself. And if you went every Saturday, the owner of the magic shop, who usually was an old magician, would notice you and say, hey, you keep coming in here. You know, you seem to be serious. You know, instead of buying this junky little trick, why don't you buy this book and read this book? And you would get guidance and you would have a mentor.
Professor Revison would now like to explain this miracle to you. He'll require another piece of paper. Now watch closely as Professor Revison explains this trick in freeze frame action.
I had some people that wanted to buy some of my stuff. They wanted it. They wanted a secret. They actually wanted me to just give it to them. And I said, no. And they said, why? I said, because they would actually come up to me and say, could you show me how that trick is done? Because I'm a magician. And I go, man, you don't understand that I just can't give it to you. First of all, I'm not doing you any good. And you know, I think it should be earned. I think of some of the things that I have been experiencing in the magic field as pieces of art. You know, when I was growing up, I'd watch somebody do something and I'd go, whoa, I don't think it's any less than a Van Gogh piece. I don't think it's any less than some of the pieces we see in a museum.
I have worked a couple times for Jack Nicholson, and afterwards he said something that was very interesting. He said, man, you've got it all. You figured it out because you think of what you want to do. You have the creative vision. Then you're the writer. You write the thing for yourself. Then you build it. You have complete constructive control of putting it together. Then you get to direct it. You get to figure out what it's going to look like. Then you get to go perform it, and you get all of that feedback of what it was. And he said it's impossible for actors or singers or someone like that to really have their hands on and have complete control of every step of that process. And if you take a look at the Mystics and where they got to go, we were all very fortunate to be able to have that complete control all the way along.
But that was the spirit of the Long Beach Mystics. It was about just quit thinking about it, just do it. And do what comes from your heart. Do what comes from your heart and do what you want to do and hope that the rest of the group or the rest of the world, you know, shares your sense of fun and adventure.
I think today the world of magic needs the Long Beach Mystics more than they ever did, but I would say I don't see it happening, but there's no reason why it couldn't happen.
You know, the problem is that you have to find a bunch of kids that are totally dedicated to that and that really want it.
And now I guess it's not done much, let's say, in other clubs out there or anywhere else in the world. So as far as, you know, repeating it or something, I don't know if it could ever be done again.
It would be very difficult to try and recreate the Long Beach Mystics today, simply because I believe it happened.
Once you're mystic for life.
People know who we are. As soon as you tell them you're a Long Beach Mystic, they go, oh, wow.
That's sort of funny. I'm a member of a club that doesn't exist, and I somehow feel I'm going to be a member of that club for life.